Hey everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology of December 9th through 15th, 2024. So we are almost to the end of the year. We have 2 more weeks until it's 2025. Like, does that sound weird to anybody? But here we are. We are in Sagittarius season. We are enjoying, or at least discovering, element fire, something that I went in depth in my introduction last week about the importance of fire and how fire is the first element in astrology. And we also have a full moon this week, a full moon that plays counter to the energies of Sagittarius season. We've got a lot of Saturn things to talk about, so let's just jump right in. But before I sort of get into things, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Katie Sweetman, and every week we gather live to look at the astrology, and you hear me say every week the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. Do not forget to be a participant. But you know what? We're human beings. But every week we gather live to listen to the astrology and to gain new perspectives. Astrology for me, it's a lot of things. It's the energy of time and how we live time. Of course, many of us come to astrology more through the personality side of things, but I believe that astrology really gives us a rich, especially when we go into depth with the zodiac and all these deep mysteries and discoveries in the zodiac, to really understand the world around us. So in astrology, it runs, it's a calendar. It's a different type of calendar, and that calendar brings us to Pisces season, which we're not there yet. That's the end of February and March. But it's always interesting how our, let's say, daily calendar, our monthly calendar doesn't quite line up with the astrology calendar, because the end of the astrological year is not until around the 19th or 20th of March of next year. So this week, as I mentioned earlier, it is a Gemini full moon. It's going to be a Gemini full moon on December 15th. It will be at 23 degrees of Gemini. And that, plus the energy of Mercury turning direct, Mercury squares Saturn, it's probably a week of choices for all of us. And of course, choices can come in a lot of different ways. Small choices. What am I going to do today? What am I going to have for dinner? If it is a left or a right, a yes or a no. But also, the bigger choices. And maybe we're thinking about things a little bit more seriously as we go into the new year, and it's sort of certainly wrapping up 2024, and certainly it's been an interesting year. So that said, which way are we going? What do we want to create in our life? And that's the beauty and sometimes the chaos of Gemini, is because it is a sign that presents us with a lot of choice. And that's it's important to have choice. We start the zodiac with Aries. We have that first rush of life, and that fire of Aries then animates the energy of Earth and Taurus, and things have a container, and we have that sort of fertility of life. And then in Gemini, we see this explosion of like multiplicity, this idea that life by its very nature wants to multiply. And that's sort of this side of Gemini that we don't always think about. But it also reminds us that even when we feel stuck, even when we don't feel like we have options, Gemini is like, au contraire, like actually there are a million options. And so maybe it's a week to reconnect to our options. For example, it's always interesting in the astrology, we'll have these sort of big rushes one way. Gemini certainly is like a horse galloping at the gate at the start of a race. But then we have Mercury is still retrograde. We have Mars has just turned retrograde. It'll be retrograde until February 23rd. And so there's an element of tempering, perhaps even an element of caution in the astrology this week. We can't run out the gate. We can't rush ahead. We can't sort of make those knee-jerk decisions and reactions. We need to contemplate. We need to reflect. And yes, we do have choice, and we do have multiplicity, and maybe we could argue that we have free will as well. But for what? What are we choosing? What are the results? Which way is it taking us? How does it affect our lives? How does it affect others? And I'm saying that because as Mercury stations direct on the 15th, same day as the Gemini full moon, it stations square Saturn. So if you recall, Saturn's still in Pisces. It'll be in Pisces pretty much until the February 2026. I say pretty much because in 2025, we're going to get a preview of Saturn in Aries. But that said, there's a lot of energy in what's called the mutable signs at the moment, minus Virgo. Virgo is a mutable sign, but we've got Jupiter in Gemini, we've got the full moon in Gemini, we have the sun in Sagittarius, we've got Mercury in Sagittarius, and then you have Saturn in Pisces. And the mutable signs, they exist to help us to learn and discover. Meaning, if life just stayed at Gemini, we would just be all over the place. We'd be trying new things, but we wouldn't really take awareness of all these different things and all these different options and all the different ways to go. It's through Virgo, even though we don't have any planets presently in Virgo. However, we're going to have the nodes go into Virgo and Pisces next year. It's another conversation for another time. But Virgo helps us to have discernment. Virgo helps us to critically think and to sort of put things in order. But we can't stop at Virgo. We need to go to Sagittarius. Sagittarius, which is where the sun is right now, Sagittarius helps us to build a larger framework. I've learned all these different things. I've sort of thought deeply about it, Gemini, Virgo, and now I've, let's say, memorized things. I've really worked hard. I've gotten a degree. Perhaps I got a higher degree, and now I have knowledge. That's Sagittarius. And Sagittarius also helps us to make our world bigger. It helps us to travel, to explore. But we don't stop with Sagittarius. We need to go to Pisces. And Pisces is not only the last mutable sign, but it's also the last sign of the zodiac. And with Pisces, all this information, all these ideas, all these choices, what has it built? What have we learned? And I mean that on a deeper level. What fills our life? And so it gets into a little bit more of an esoteric and spiritual and even philosophical side of the power of choice. And so Saturn this week Saturn's not sort of saying don't do that. I think it's a little bit richer than that. Although we may feel that this is a week where a limit has been set, even if that limit has been set by us. But Saturn is saying, what is the value of your choice? What is it not just building in the short term, but what is it building in the long term? And what is it building on a deeper emotional, psychic, and even spiritual level? Because when we reach Pisces, we've reached the end, metaphorically speaking, we've reached the end of our life. Because the zodiac exists as a cycle. Whether that cycle is your life, whether that cycle is a year, whether that cycle is a day. And so we get to the end of Pisces, and we've reached the end of something. And that's where you take the wisdom, the deeper wisdom of what the cycle has created. And that's one of the reasons why Pisces is the two fishes, because it shows us the reality on a deeper level of what our choice, Gemini, Mercury, began with the first mutable sign. I wanted to say that because, yes, it's a full moon in Gemini, and full moons, just by their nature, can put something in the spotlight, can provoke an action, can sort of bring up an event sometimes. Maybe it can be confrontational, but there's something that's deeper that's happening this week about this examination of our choice, examination of not just choice, because Gemini is also the sign of voice and communication. It's how we think and listen and learn. And so how do we think? How do we listen? How do we move? Because Gemini is also movement. And that's where Mercury, even though it's not quite direct at the time of the full moon on Sunday the 15th, it'll be at least here in the almost the New York City area. I'm not in New York anymore. At least at 4:02 a.m. when the full moon on the 15th, we have to wait, I think, like till the evening or the afternoon until Mercury turns direct. So there is a need to counterbalance and to be intentional with energies and a sign that's normally instinctive. Gemini is a young sign. I'm putting that in air quotes because the first few signs of the zodiac are very sort of not the right word I'm thinking of, but I wanted to say immature, but I don't want you to think, oh, Aries is immature. It's there's a sense of like we're still working with building blocks when we're in the first four signs of the zodiac. And then we mature and we grow in experience as we get to the latter signs, hopefully, the latter signs of the zodiac. So we're all going to feel this full moon in our own way. And in fact, if you are a Gemini or you are a mutable sign, this might be a week of a commitment, a choice, maybe something serious. I don't want serious to be like, oh no, serious, but keep in mind, Saturn talks about the milestones of our life. The milestones of our life are often born out of major choices. Do I take this job? Do I move? Do I say I do? Do I say yes? Do I say no? And I think with Saturn, again, Saturn and Pisces, Pisces being this deeper sign, it's element water, it's the last sign of the zodiac. There is something to be said about spending time and reflecting this week. Not just thinking, head thinking, rationally thinking about our options, but also heart thinking, for example. And so that's showing us the other side of this full moon this week. And on more on a surface level, Sag is knowledge and which I already spoke about, and then Gemini is, well, where does knowledge come from? If something is in a book or something is an idea or something is a generally held belief, where did it come from? And that's sort of this push and pull between Gemini and Sagittarius. Sag, and I'm saying this as Sag's shadow side because every sign in the zodiac has a shadow side. Sag it can be a bit judgmental, it can be a bit narrow-minded, ironically. And so this full moon says we can't be judgmental, we can't be narrow-minded. We need to make sure we are looking at all the different options. So again, we're all going to experience this full moon this week in our own way, and especially if you're a writer, if you're a speaker, if you're a public speaker, there are elements of this full moon for you as well. Maybe you want to publish something, maybe you want to speak about something, for example. So Sag season is really taking us into the next week and a half, because I believe by next week we're gonna go into Capricorn season, that's also crazy. But yeah, here we are. We're at the end of the year, and good segue to talk about, I am doing a webinar on the 17th, so a week from now. It will be live and recorded. It will be live on Tuesday, December 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern, and it will also be recorded for those that can't watch live, but it is on the astrology of 2025. And 2025 is a very interesting year because we have two outer planets changing signs, Uranus and Neptune. Saturn makes its first foray into Aries. And if you bring Pluto in, Pluto finally made its last arrival into Aquarius back in November. That's three outer planets changing signs relatively in a short period of time. Pluto went into Capricorn in January 2008. Neptune went into Pisces in, I think, last arrival was February of 2012. And Uranus has been in Taurus since May 2018 and March 2019. So those are big periods of time. And that said, think about the version of who you were in 2018, 2019. versus who you are now. There's like, it feels like we've lived about 3 lifetimes in just 5-6 years. But on some level, with planets changing signs, planets that haven't changed signs in a while, it says to some level that 2025 is the bridge, it is the start of a new era. I'm thinking 2024 is like the bridge and the run up, and that 2025 is the start of something new. And to go back to Gemini, that's a sign that we need to start paying attention to. And even if you're scratching your head, like, but I'm not a Gemini, why is this important to me? Because you are all 12 signs of the zodiac. You have a sun sign, maybe that sun sign is in Sagittarius, happy birthday. But you also have 11 other zodiac signs around you. And one of those signs may be your career sign, your relationship sign, for example. And so I say pay attention to Gemini because it's an archetype that we all live. We all hopefully have a voice. We all hopefully speak and communicate. Hopefully we all have some form of education. Hopefully we also get a chance to travel and to explore and to have curiosity in our life. And next year, Uranus is going to go into Gemini for the first time, at least in my lifetime. You'd have to have been born in I think the early 1940s for Uranus to have last been in Gemini. So it hasn't happened in a long time. And so that's one of the areas where we're going to start to see a shift in our focus. So something I'll be talking more about in my webinar. Of course, I'm sure we'll talk more about it throughout next year. And since we're on the subject, because I get asked this question every time this time of year, I do gift certificates. Links are in the show notes for gift certificates. They are on my websites. Little shameless plug. And while we're still on shameless plugs, I also, this is getting back to Sagittarius. I migrated my webinars and my learn astrology modules to a new platform. And that platform is in the link to the show notes. You can also go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. So, having said that, of course, you want to learn astrology. That's why you're here each week. You're like, no, I want horoscopes, or maybe you want both. But yes, you can also follow me online at empoweringastrology.com because I can see some familiar faces in the chat. I know some of you are my clients, so some of you I work with one-on-one, for example. Having said all that, it is relatively a quiet week. Not that a full moon is quiet, but it feels like we had a series of weeks where there was like Saturn turned direct. We had a pretty powerful full moon. Pluto going to Aquarius, Mars turning retrograde. So maybe we need a little bit of time to catch our breath this week. I know at least as we start the week, the moon is in Aries, not quite a sign to catch our breath with. We do have a lot of fire energy into the middle of the week. Fire energy is about action, motivation. It's also inspirational. It also wants to be creative and start something. I know that Mercury is retrograde. I know that Mars is retrograde. It doesn't mean that everything comes to a halt, but we just can't do it without thinking. That's the thing. Or we have to look at maybe how we did something in the past versus how we're doing it now. So, having said all that, let's look at each of the 12 zodiac signs so that you can, where's this Gemini full moon lighting up your life, for example. And just your friendly reminder that you can listen for your sun sign and your rising sign. That's another question that I get asked periodically. To listen for your sun sign, you get good information, but you are getting information from the perspective of the self. That's what the sun is. The sun is the self. It's you. It's your ego. It's, of course, you're living your life from that level. But then knowing your rising sign, which can only be calculated if you have your exact birth time, that gives you a much richer and fuller perspective. I don't know. Some people feel differently. Some people feel that they get more from their sun sign or their rising sign. But listen for both. You'll get 2 different perspectives, and that can hopefully give you an overlap to kind of tease out what's the story specifically for your life. Also, while I'm thinking about it, because I have a Gemini moon and I have some type of Gemini brain, I think I might start offering what's called rectification services. This is a little bit of a technical side note for those that don't know their birth time. It's something that I've been doing, like armchair rectification for a while. But rectification, it's a lot of research, and you have to crunch a lot of numbers, and you have to look for a lot of patterns and time. But you can reverse engineer the astrology if you don't know the birth time. You would need exact dates in your life. You would need a lot of information, but I haven't put anything out there officially, but I don't know. Maybe you're thinking, I want to do some rectification. Anyway, we'll talk later. But anyway, let's go to each of the 12 zodiac signs to listen to where this Gemini full moon is highlighting, or what it is highlighting in your life. Starting with Aries. Aries, so Mars is your planet. We talk about this every week, and as you know, Mars last week turned retrograde. It presently is in a part of your chart that talks about who are you? How do you express yourself? How do you express your creativity? Do you know your identity? You're like, oh, yes, of course. But maybe you need to get back to you. Maybe you need to get back to that spark, get back to that passion, spend more time doing things that are creative. You're going to live this Mars retrograde in your own way, because you have your own life and you have your own experience with how you express yourself. And if there's a block, use this Mars retrograde to unblock yourself. If you need to reprioritize where you're putting your energy, then prioritize putting it into the things that actually light you up and give you joy and give you passion. That's Mars and Leo for you. That said, we are having a full moon in Gemini. Gemini is something called your third sign. Voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn. And this is full moon is playing off of a Sagittarius new moon on December 1st. And that Sagittarius new moon was about belief, faith, truth, meaning, philosophy, knowledge. What do you believe in? What do you stand for? What's your truth? And this full moon gets into needing to make a choice. That choice, and maybe that's the thing, Mercury is retrograde, maybe you're still deliberating, maybe you're still trying to seek out options, but there is something about this week, especially with that full moon, where you need to make some sort of choice. See how this is relevant to your life. Mercury is square Saturn, Saturn is Saturn, and Saturn is saying that you need to take your choices seriously, you need to take your options seriously, and to think about the future, but even to consult your intuition. And since we're on the subject of Saturn, Saturn continues to be in something called your 12th, where it will be for the better part of the next, year and change. And this continues to be the time in your life that's about the end of a big cycle, the end of a great cycle, and a need to leave things behind. And so maybe this is pulling into this need to go within, to consult your spirituality, to think about your life on bigger levels, and again, to make some sort of serious commitment or choice that talks about your future. Taurus. So Venus is your planet, and as of a couple days ago, Venus is now in Aquarius. Aquarius is a part of your chart. It's something called your 10th. It's career, it's the title after your name, it's the role that you play in the world. And as of November 19th, you've had a planet in that part of your chart that will be there for 20 years. I know, that's crazy. But we've been talking about this because Pluto in Aquarius has been happening since 2023. So now that Venus is there, start to pay attention. What's going on in your professional life? What's going on with your relationship with duties and responsibilities, the role that you want to play in the world? Because if I took Pluto out of the mix, Venus going through Aquarius says that this is a season into the new year where you need to focus on your work, your responsibilities, your public life, your public reputation. I put Pluto in there and it's a different story. Maybe on a deeper level or on a surface level, it looks the same, but on a deeper level, certainly not. because you are in the early stages of some sort of big transformation, and that big transformation is unique to your life and your story. Because over the coming years, Taurus, you may make a complete career change, or you may transform your relationship with power or responsibility, or maybe it is to find your place in the world, to really stand in the world and define your public life. You will have to see. But I think with Venus there right now, it's giving you little clues. I want you to pay attention to that. That said, the Gemini full moon, Gemini is something called your second sign of money, income, material stability, and security. So for some Tauruses, this is about money. This is about the money you make, the money you spend, the property and assets that you have, the resource that are available to you. And with the Sagittarius new moon 2 weeks ago, you're looking at finance, assets, planning for the future, debt, and it's sort of this needing to make some choices about either how you're spending money, how you're earning money, the things that are truly important for you on a material or resource level. For some Tauruses, it's about self-worth and value, really knowing your self-worth and value and needing to set some boundaries around that. And for some Tauruses, it's around safety, stability, and security. Do I feel safe? Do I feel like I have everything that I need? But it's for you to see how this is showing up in your life, but it may talk about some choices and certainly some financial choices and choices for the future. Gemini, so the spotlight is on you this week. So every time this time of year, sometimes it's the beginning of the end of November, sometimes it's the beginning of December, there's usually a full moon in Gemini. And so this is a full moon that puts the spotlight on you. And for that can mean different things in your life. The spotlight on you could mean that you're getting recognition for something. Maybe it's the end of the year and you're sort of getting recognition for all your hard work. Certainly you are going through a career transit right now, Gemini. You've got Saturn still in your career zone. You've got Mercury square Saturn this week. Mercury is turning direct. So there's not just a full moon that puts you in the spotlight. It's a full moon where you need to make either some sort of major choice and decision, or you need to step into a role. And this is a role that maybe you have known about. It's there. Saturn is there. Maybe it's as simple as I need to make a choice about what I want to be when I grow up. But there is a lot of back and forth between you and other people. This may include a relationship or just how you connect and interact and socialize with people. But overall, this continues to be a major time to be a Gemini. You got Jupiter in your sign, you got Jupiter squaring Saturn. And I think, again, I've said this a few times before in other previous videos, that the second half of 2024 is very different than the first half. And it's a time when more is being asked of you, for you to stand in some sort of role. And maybe this Mercury retrograde has given you time to reflect and to see what your options are, to not make a choice impulsively, but to properly reflect and deliberate, and that see how things start to move forward and pivot once Mercury turns direct on the 15th, the same day as that full moon. Cancer. So the moon is your planet, and the moon is spending its time. It started barely in Pisces as we start the week, but mostly in Aries, then Taurus by the middle of the week, later this week. And then, of course, we have that big, bold Gemini full moon this weekend. And for you, an Aries moon, as we start the week, Aries is something called your career sign. So there's a lot of fire, a lot of movement as we start the week, a lot of motivation, and it's trying to get you moving and going, Cancer. Then we have the moon in Taurus around the middle of the week to the end, to Thursday and Friday. And Taurus is about your friends, your community, your social network. Really needing to get clear about what you value and what's worthwhile at this time when you think about your future, investing in your future. And then we have the Gemini full moon. And so for you, Gemini is something called your 12th sign. So we have 12 signs in total. And if I'm looking at you, Cancer, whether you are Cancer Sun or Cancer Rising, Gemini forms the last sign in your personal zodiac. When there is a full moon there, on some level, it represents we've come to the end of something. Of course, this is going to mean different things to different Cancers. The end of something means the natural conclusion. You're ready to move on, and the full moon signals that it's time to go. For some Cancers, you need that push. You need that realization that something has sort of reached its natural conclusion and something has reached its end. For some Cancers, it's a need to go within. The 12th, on a sort of, depending on how you look at it, it's a time to retreat. It's a time to recuperate. It's typically a place that's more solitary. And for some Cancers, that means retreat, but in the sense of like, I want to connect with something that's beyond this world. I want to connect with my spirituality, for example. Mercury is making squares to Saturn. Saturn has been in your 9th since March 2023. So this has just been a larger chapter of your life where you're being asked to figure out, what do you believe in and what do you stand for and what do you think is true? And there is this play that's happening between the energies of the 12th, the energies of the 9th, faith, truth, wisdom, knowledge, also the energies of that Sag Sun in the 6th. So trying to find the balance this week, the best that you can, and even into next week, between your earthly life, your human life, but also your spiritual life and what is connected beyond. Leo, the sun is your planet. So when the sun is in Sagittarius, you have that double dose of fire energy, because Leo is a fire sign, Sagittarius is a fire sign. And when the sun is in Sagittarius, the sun is going through your 5th sign. And hopefully this is going to be a little bit of mental gymnastics, but Leo, you are the 5th sign of the zodiac, and the sun right now is in your 5th sign. I know, it's mental gymnastics, but it's just a reminder that Sag and Leo have actually a lot in common. And that Leo shines the most when it gets to talk about what it believes in, what it shares in, and really wants to open up people's points of view and make people's world bigger. So with the sun in Sag, there is elements of creativity and passion that are really in the spotlight at the moment, and really needing to get clear about how you are feeding the things that actually light you up and give you joy. The Gemini full moon, for some Leos, this is about your community. It is about your friends. It is about your social circle. It's about really sharing, hopefully, the best of yourself with the people that you love, with the people that are in your community. Or maybe there's a point of tension between what makes you you and how you want to express yourself versus what is expected of you by your friends, by your community. Also, this is a full moon to think about the future. Like, what do you want to create, especially as we go, starting to go into 2025? What kind of world do you want to create? How do you want to take your gifts, your talents, your abilities, and put them out there, for example? This could be a full moon where you are thinking about broader issues, broader topics, social issues, social causes. Maybe there's a desire to get involved on some level as well. But that said, with Mercury in Sagittarius turning direct with Mercury square Saturn, there's a need to make some sort of choice. But I think that's born out of doing a lot of inner work, because Saturn is in your 8th. It'll be in your 8th until the beginning of 2026. And, really looking at, how you nourish yourselves, and maybe the times where you've worked against yourself, and maybe sometimes you've even portrayed yourself. So there's something that's being released or revealed with this full moon that I think is born out of some deeper work. And that's really helping you to set you up as you go into 2025. Virgo, so Mercury is your planet, and it's just about to turn direct in Sagittarius. So it's been a while that Mercury has been in Sagittarius. I can't remember the exact date, probably sometime in November. But Mercury in Sag means that Mercury is in something called your fourth. The fourth is the base, your foundation, it's home, it's family. And so that's been a big focal point, certainly over the past couple of weeks, even into November as well. So for some Virgos, you've needed to look at your home, your household. Maybe you're thinking about a move. Maybe you just want to rearrange things. But Mercury is squaring Saturn. And so there's something that's kind of pressing upon you. It could be a decision. It could be a commitment. It could be a responsibility. Saturn typically puts things in black and white. It's a yes or a no. It's going to work. It's not going to work. You need to do it. You need to not do it. But also Saturn gives you, especially because you're a Virgo, a chance to really sort things and sort things out and to have a plan. With the full moon in Gemini, Gemini is something called your 10th sign. It's your public life, it's your career, it's the title after your name, and it's the most public part of your chart. So this full moon on some level puts you in the spotlight. Maybe it's a recognition, maybe it's something in your professional life, maybe it's certainly we're getting to the end of the year. It's sort of the end of the year reviews and reviews at work. And so maybe you need that pat on the back. You do continue to have Jupiter in your career sign. It's a time for you to grow, to expand, for you to find your confidence in your professional life, or perhaps even to take a calculated risk, but use this energy. I realize we're kind of in a funny time of year. It's going to be the 15th of December, which means we got one more week until Christmas holidays and the end of the year. But launch yourself, put yourself out there. If you need a job, like who are you going to connect with? If you're trying to get recognition on you can use the full moon for that. But that said, with the Jupiter square Saturn, with Mercury square Saturn, this, and I said this to Gemini because you're also what's called a mutable sign, this continues to be a big time in your life. You've got Saturn in your relationship sign. It's about taking relationships seriously, whether that's a relationship on a romantic level, whether that's a relationship in general. But there could be something pivotal about this full moon that really builds upon a story that has its, I think even has its roots in Saturn's arrival in Pisces back in March of 2023. Libra, Venus is your planet, and Venus is presently in Aquarius. So Aquarius is something called your fifth sign. It's creativity, it's passion, it's joy, it's your talents, your gifts, your abilities. I know that sounds very nice. It is a reminder that you need this because the next sign over is something called your six. And six is health and wellness, but it's also work, projects, duties, and responsibilities. It is the daily grind. And it's saying to you, of course we have responsibilities. Of course we need to go to work or take care of the bills or whatever, but don't forget about the things that actually nourish you, light you up, give you joy, and give you pleasure. So as you go into the rest of the year, it is time to get that spark back and maybe to have a little bit of balance with a lot of the hard work perhaps that you've needed to do over the last year and a half with Saturn in your six. Do not forget, I'm sure you haven't, Libra, you had that Libra solar eclipse on October 2nd. I realize October feels like it's in the rear view, but that's the thing about solar eclipses is that it's a moment that is still present with you. It says that this continues to be a dynamic period of your life where things are happening and it's time of new beginnings as you go into the first few months of 2025, because we will have that last eclipse in Aries on, I think it's March 29th or 30th of 2025. When the sun goes into Capricorn, I'm kind of getting ahead in a moment. I think that's the 21st of December. You spend the last week of December, a week or 2 weeks, into the beginning of January, where we're tying together the two eclipses. So you may see more about that eclipse in the end of December, in the beginning of January, just something to put on your radar. But that said, you've got Venus in your fifth. Have fun, create, but don't forget that also Pluto is in your fifth as of November 19th. Whatever is going on, whatever it is about self, creativity, it's part of a bigger story that Pluto is opening. Do you know who you are? I realize that's a question that we all have to ask ourselves, but Pluto in that part of our chart says that you're starting this big process of stripping away anything that's not you. And this is not a year-long process or a month-long process. This is a years, plural, long process. So really sit with these energies that you're feeling right now, because it is part of a bigger change and chapter in your life. Oh, Gemini full moon, almost missed it. The Gemini full moon, Gemini is something called your ninth sign. So we're getting this air energy, Venus and Aquarius. We've got your Libra rising or Libra sun. And the ninth is, what do I believe in? What do I stand for? What do I think is true? And whether you are focusing on education at this time, whether you are planning trips or wanting to make your world bigger, whatever you're doing, make sure that it's in alignment with the reality and the truth of who you are. Scorpio, Mars is your planet, and Mars has turned retrograde as of December 6th. And so it's saying that over the next couple of months until February 23rd, give or take, it is a need to reflect. It is a need to look at how you use your Mars, how you exert your Mars. Mars, as the ruler of Scorpio, it is what's called a water Mars. It's not the Mars of Aries. Aries is I act, I do, I go forward. It's very physical. But with Scorpio, it's emotional. And it shows that Scorpio has the emotional bravery to go into spaces that people typically can't or don't want to go into. Sometimes with Scorpio, we put ourselves in spaces that are sort of antithetical to life, because that's the thing about being a Scorpio, is that we're really good at being in spaces that are counter to life. We are the sign of decay, that when the sun is going through Scorpio, it's the end of the growing season, for example. So it's ironic that Mars is in Leo, because Leo is about life. It's about joy, it's about passion, it's about creativity, it's also your public life, it's your career. Your Mars is going to be, for the better part of the next 6 months, I believe, in a part of the chart that's very public, minus Mars's time in Cancer. But this is a time to balance out. You know, you can be a Scorpio and also enjoy life. You can be a Scorpio and to really get back in touch with your creativity, your talents, your gifts, and your abilities, for example. We'll keep talking about Mars retrograde, because again, Mars will be retrograde until February 23rd, 2025. That said, speaking of being a Scorpio, you've got a Gemini full moon. Why am I saying speaking of being a Scorpio if I'm talking about Gemini? Okay, here's some mental gymnastics. Scorpio is the 8th sign of the zodiac, and Gemini is Scorpio's 8th sign. If we count out 8 signs from Scorpio, we hit Gemini. So Gemini is Scorpio's 8th house. Another way of putting it is that Gemini is Scorpio's 8th room. I call it being in the 8th room. It is a space that we all have to go, where we face ourselves. And because we're Scorpios, we typically can do this. We can face ourselves. We can get into those uncomfortable spaces. But doesn't mean that it's not uncomfortable. So there's something about this full moon that's pressing upon either deeper emotional material, something that needs to be talked about, something that needs to be released. For some Scorpios, it is about money and finance. It's about power. It's about control. It's about intimacy, vulnerability, trust. And with the Mercury square Saturn, there may need to be some sort of choice, setting some hard boundaries, saying yes to what you need to say yes to, saying no to what you need to say no to. For some Scorpio, this is a great full moon to put towards mental health and wellness, talking to a therapist, talking to a counselor. And this full moon also puts a light in a space that it typically is in the dark. So something may come to light, information may be revealed, something needs to be discussed, and maybe you're making a choice. Is it a yes or a no, a right, a left, an up or a down? And that might be part of the pivot with this Gemini full moon. Sagittarius, happy birthday, Sagittarius. So we got, what, one more week or so, or 2 more weeks until the end of Sagittarius season. You know, we do have a Gemini full moon this week. And for you, Gemini is what's called your opposing sign, but opposing doesn't mean like it opposes you. It's your counter. It's 2 halves of the whole. If Sag is about big vision and travel and exploration and really making our world bigger, Gemini is the need to get back to the individual ideas and information. Like, what made this big idea? What made this grand choice? Well, first it was curiosity. It was exploration. That's what led to that. Gemini is also something called your relationship sign. Now, for some Sages, this is literally about a relationship, or it's about how you interact and connect and socialize. This continues to be a big time in Sag or Sag rising's life because you have Saturn down in your 4th sign. We've been talking about this since last year. It is a time to continue to make family a priority, to focus on the home environment, your living situation, to put down roots, which is, Sag is normally, usually traveling the world, but, with Saturn in the 4th, since March of 2023, Sag has really needed to find or even re-find its anchor point. So with the full moon, it is a decision. It could be a very dynamic full moon for you. It could be something where you need to make a commitment. You need to get clear about something. It could be about your professional life, your public life. It could be about a relationship. It could be about your living situation. I know that's a lot of different things, but you have all these different threads converging with this full moon. And it could be a pivotal time. There could be events in your life at this time, Sag or Sag rising. But I wanted to also, and this is more for 2025, you're going to have a big change in that part, your relationship section, starting in July of 2025, because that's when Uranus goes there. And Uranus hasn't been there in our lifetime, unless you're 80 years old, and God bless if you are. But this part of your life means that something about how you connect and interact and socialize, about how you do relationship, will begin to change. And I think there's something about this full moon that's like the lead up, whether you are getting clear about the type of people you want in your life, the type of relationship you want, because you got Saturn there, and Saturn is like, don't forget to really focus on the things that matter. Focus on the things that are actually going to support you and nourish you and support you for the future. And that's where a little bit of the friction point is, because typically Sag and Gemini, like, they're fast, they're quick, they want to do things, they need options, they need curiosity. But Saturn is saying, like, we need to get very anchored and very clear. Capricorn. So Saturn is your planet, and Saturn's in a way a little bit in the spotlight this week. So Saturn has been in your 3rd sign, voice, communication. It's also movement. It's also choice. It's also education, since March of 2023. And Pisces continues, because Saturn's in Pisces right now, Saturn continues to be in a sign that leans more towards intuition and emotion and feeling than rational thinking. Capricorn's actually a lot more intuitive than we give the sign credit for. This full moon is putting in the spotlight what's called your 6. The 6 is like the operations of your life. You get up, you brush your teeth, you walk the dog, you make coffee, you go to work, you do this, all these little things that we all have to do. That's the 6. And so this full moon for some Capricorns is saying, well, how are you living your day-to-day life? How are you organizing and structuring things? Where are you putting your energy? Do you need to make a change? Because with the Mercury square Saturn, it talks about the need to make some choices. Even though you're like, wait, I'm a Capricorn, like I'm ruled by Saturn, but the energy is still present in the astrology. For some Capricorns, the choice could be about diet, fitness, nutrition, how you take care of your body, because the 6 is not just operations. That operations includes how you take care of yourself. So if you're not good at something, but that something is pretty integral to keeping your life healthy and well, whatever it is, because we're all different people, use this full moon to make a decision. Mercury square Saturn, maybe it's a choice for your health. It's a healthy decision. Mercury square Saturn, you need to stop. Saturn's very much the don't do this. It's not good for you. It's not good for you in the long term. And for some Capricorns, you need to focus on your health and wellness. And maybe it's getting checkups, making appointments, that sort of thing. For some Capricorns, it could be about service. You feel this desire to help other people. You want to get involved in your neighborhood and perhaps even your community. And you need to make some like real concrete structures and decisions. But but on some level, because the Saturn is in Pisces, there continues to be this philosophical and even spiritual veneer that's over everything. And maybe veneer is not the right word because it makes it sound like it's not important, but that's like the lens in which everything is being lived through at the moment. Aquarius, Saturn is your planet, still in Pisces, your second sign, money, income, material stability, and security, but also value and worth. That said, this Gemini full moon is in something called your fifth sign. The fifth sign is a lot of things. I actually really love the fifth sign because it's a space where we need to get back in touch with who we are. Who are we? That's a question that I ask my clients a lot, and I get a lot of head scratches. And that's important, that we're always like, I don't know who I am. But you are that essence of who you are that lights up when you do something that you love. That's something that's a natural extension of you. Because we're all hardened adults right now, we forget what it was like to be a 5-year-old, or we just like did things, we played, and we didn't self-censor. So this full moon is saying, like, get back in touch with that part of yourself, play, create, invest in the things that light you up and give you joy. For some Aquariuses, this is a very creative full moon, time to get back to that creative energy. For some Aquariuses, I realize this is a very small subset. It is about children and perhaps even pregnancy or a choice about children or wanting to have more childlike energy in your chart. Perhaps it's getting a dog. I don't know. You do you. But with that full moon, it is opposite. The sun is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is something called your 11th sign. It talks about your friends, your community, your public life on some level, your future. And it's needing to really make sure that because think about being Aquarius. Sometimes you think about the big thing, but don't forget about the things that make you you. With this full moon, Mercury is making a square to Saturn. Saturn, hey, that's your planet. So there is something about how are you investing your time? How are you really putting the time and the energy into the things that are truly important and of value, the things that actually support and nourish your life. Money is money, but what is money? The things that we can create a sense of material stability and security, or is it value and worth, like the things that are truly of value to us that we carry with us throughout our life, regardless of physical currency and monetary value. So this is a full moon that on some level puts you in the spotlight, but where you need to put your focus and energy and decision on the things that are actually truly important to you. And finally, Pisces. So it continues to be a big time to be a Pisces. Why? Because we've got a couple of things happening right now. We got a couple of things happening in the new year. First, let's talk about Jupiter, your planet. It continues to be in the base and foundation of your personal astrology chart. So this continues to be a year from May 2024 to beginning of June 2025 to focus on your home environment, your living situation, whether it's to move, whether it's to spend more time with family, whether it's to create a family, whether it's to be with people who you would vastly prefer to be with than your biological family. But it's a time to really invest in what's going to support and hold up and nourish your life. With this full moon, the full moon is in the same sign as you, where that Jupiter is. And so for some Pisces, it's about your household. Perhaps people are moving in, somebody's moving out, maybe you're preparing for a move, maybe you need to focus on family, your parents, parents getting older. Of course, this is not going to be relevant for each person. But with the energy of Mercury square Saturn, Mercury is turning direct in something called your career sign. Whatever this full moon is hitting on, it's hitting on actually a lot of deeper points, because this might be a pivotal moment for you, whether it's the time building up to the full moon or the time right after the full moon on the 15th of December, Sunday. The other thing that's happening as you go into the next year is that you will have eclipses in Pisces. And we had our first eclipse on September 17th. We will have another eclipse in Pisces in September of 2025. You're going to have eclipses in Virgo. There'll be a full moon in Virgo in March of 2025. So it's just saying it's a big time to be a Pisces. Probably a lot's going on. Maybe you're scratching your head. You're like, I don't know what you're talking about, Katie. Nothing's happening. See how it's relevant to your life and see how life is asking more of you as you go into 2025. So there you go. That is your look at the astrology of December 9th through 15th, 2024. Again, my name is Katie Sweetman. I appreciate you all. Thank you for listening and watching every week. You can book a consultation with me. Yes, I do one-on-one consultations. Some of you are my clients. I love working with people and talking to them about their astrology charts, which is like their map, their blueprint for their life. It is the time of year where people are getting gift certificates, so you can also get a gift certificate. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. Also, join me for my webinar next Tuesday on the Astrology 2025. I will do a deep dive into the bigger points. Like I said, we are in a shift of eras as we go into 2025. You can also follow me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, and I will see you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.